Most people begin their journey toward wealth by asking how. How do I make more money? How do I invest? How do I scale a business? These are important questions, no doubt. But they're not the first question you should be asking. The journey doesn't start with how, it starts with why. We've been conditioned to treat wealth as a finish line, a destination that promises happiness, status, or freedom. Here's the truth most never confront. Money without meaning is empty. Wealth without purpose leads to exhaustion, not fulfillment. And the reason so many people struggle to attract true abundance in their lives is because they've never stopped to ask, why do I want it in the first place? That question, why, is uncomfortable. It forces us to face ourselves, to look beyond the surface of goals and into the core of motivation. But when you ask it honestly, something powerful happens. You move from chasing to attracting, from reacting to creating. Because when you understand why you do what you do, the path becomes clearer, your energy becomes more focused, and wealth, the real kind, starts to follow. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Wealth is not about money. It's about alignment. It's about being connected to something larger than a paycheck. People who create unlimited wealth don't wake up each day thinking, how can I make more money today? They wake up thinking, how can I create more value today? They're driven by something deeper, something more human, a mission, a cause, a belief that what they're building matters. When your pursuit of wealth is rooted in purpose, it becomes sustainable, it becomes magnetic. People want to be around you. They want to support you. They want to buy from you, work with you, grow with you, because purpose is contagious. It resonates. And when others feel that what you're doing is about more than just profit, they lean in. That's how trust is built. That's how momentum begins. That's how wealth multiplies. But here's where most people get stuck. They think the reason they're not wealthy is because they don't have the right strategy or the right opportunity. But often the real reason is that their why is weak. They're chasing goals that aren't really theirs. Maybe they want wealth to impress others or to finally feel like they're enough. Maybe it's just what they've been told to want. But deep down, there's no emotional connection to the outcome. And without that connection, the fire doesn't last. You can have all the tactics in the world, but if your foundation isn't built on purpose, you'll burn out before you break through. Purpose is the fuel. It's what gets you through the late nights, the rejections, the failures. It's what keeps you going when no one's watching and nothing seems to be working. Without it, even success feels hollow. With it, even failure feels worthwhile. Ask yourself right now, why do you want to attract wealth? Not the rehearsed answer, not the socially acceptable answer, the real one. What would wealth allow you to do? Who would it allow you to become? What kind of impact could you make if money were no longer a limitation? And most importantly, who are you doing it for? If your answer is rooted in contribution, growth, or a mission beyond yourself, you're on the right path. If it's only rooted in consumption, comparison, or compensation for insecurity, it's time to dig deeper. There's nothing wrong with wanting nice things, but nice things don't build a meaningful life. Meaning does. When you lead with why, the things you build begin to reflect that. Your business isn't just a business, it's a vehicle for impact. Your career isn't just a paycheck, it's a platform for purpose. Your investments aren't just numbers, they're fuel for a vision. And when you think that way, everything changes. You begin to attract people who share your values. You begin to see opportunities others miss because your filter isn't just what pays the most, it's what aligns the most. You begin to say no to things that drain you and yes to things that stretch you. The people who create unlimited wealth are not the ones who chase trends or shortcuts. They're the ones who stand for something. They build from the inside out. They don't sell products, they sell belief. They don't hustle for attention, they earn trust. And trust is the ultimate currency. Far more valuable than money because trust compounds. It opens doors, it builds legacy. When you train your mind to think in terms of purpose, you stop playing the short game. You start building something worth following, something worth funding, something worth fighting for. Here's what's interesting. When you get clear on your why, wealth starts to feel less like something you need to chase and more like something that naturally flows toward you. Not overnight, not without effort, but with a kind of ease that comes from alignment. Because people don't follow what you do, they follow why you do it. And when your why is clear, your actions carry more weight. Your words have more resonance. Your energy has more gravity. That's how you attract wealth. Not just the financial kind, but wealth in relationships, opportunities, freedom, and impact. You attract what you are, not what you pretend to be. And when who you are is anchored in purpose, that attraction becomes unstoppable. So before you write your goals, before you build your strategy, before you chase the next big thing, pause, go inward, ask the harder question, why do I want wealth? And more importantly, who do I want to become on the way to getting it? When you start there, you don't just train your mind to attract wealth, you train it to attract meaning. And in the long run, meaning is the only wealth that truly matters. If you ask most people what they want, the answer comes quickly. I want to be rich. But if you ask them who they believe they are, you'll notice something strange. The words don't match the vision. There's a disconnect between the desire for wealth and the identity that supports it. And that disconnect, not the economy, not your education, not your past, is often what holds people back. You don't get what you want. You get what you believe. Belief is the foundation of behavior. Belief drives action. Belief shapes results. And belief at its core is identity. Until you see yourself as someone who deserves, creates, and sustains wealth, you'll always find a way to lose it, avoid it, or sabotage it. We're taught to set goals, to work hard, to grind, and there's value in that, but very few are taught to examine the most important part of the equation, the story you tell yourself about who you are. The truth is, your external world rarely outpaces your internal story. If you still see yourself as someone who always struggles, someone who never gets ahead, someone who's not good with money, then no matter how hard you try, you'll unconsciously reinforce that story. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone win big? Maybe they land a great job or come into money unexpectedly, only to lose it just as quickly. That's not about luck. That's not about intelligence. That's identity. When your mind hasn't caught up with your reality will shrink back down to match your mind. Wealth, real wealth, starts inside. It begins the moment you start believing that abundance isn't something rare or reserved for others. It's something you can step into if you're willing to see yourself differently. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's not about putting affirmations on your mirror and hoping your bank account follows. It's about a deep and deliberate shift in self-perception. It's about building a wealth identity. And that starts with a question that most people never ask. Who do I need to become to live the life I want? When you answer that question honestly, you start to uncover something profound. Wealth isn't a number. It's a mindset, it's a way of being, it's a standard you hold yourself to, not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. The person who attracts wealth doesn't just think differently, they live differently. They carry themselves with intentionality. They take responsibility. They move with vision. They don't wait to feel confident. They act in alignment with their future self, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. That's how identity is built. Not through what you say, but through what you practice. The habits you choose each day either reinforce the identity of someone who creates wealth or someone who avoids it. Are you showing up on time? Are you keeping promises to yourself? Are you surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to think bigger or people who reinforce your limitations? We often think of wealth as a destination, but it's actually a mirror. It reflects back to us the standards we've accepted. If you want to change your financial future, you have to change your internal blueprint. Because you don't rise to the level of your ambition, you fall to the level of your identity. The most powerful shift you can make isn't in your income, it's in your image, the one you hold in your mind when no one's watching. That image sets the ceiling for your success. If you still see yourself as someone who just gets by, you'll build systems that support that belief. If you see yourself as someone who's building generational wealth, not just for your lifestyle, but for your legacy, you'll make very different decisions. Identity doesn't change in one leap. It shifts with intention. You build a new identity, one choice at a time. Every time you say no to instant gratification, every time you study instead of scroll, every time you invest instead of spend, you're voting for the person you want to become. Here's the truth, you're always becoming someone. The question is whether you're doing it by design or by default. Look at the people who've created extraordinary wealth, not just in dollars, but in impact. What do they have in common? It's not always education, it's not even always talent, it's belief. They believed in their capacity to grow, to create, to adapt, and they built habits that aligned with that belief. That's what created the results. You can copy someone's strategy, you can follow their steps, but unless you adopt the beliefs that powered those steps, the results won't. Because results are always downstream from identity, always. So ask yourself today, if I truly believed I was a creator of wealth, how would I think? How would I speak? How would I treat my time? How would I treat myself? When you begin to live from the identity of your future self, before the results show up, you collapse the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Most people wait for external success to give them internal permission to feel worthy. But it works the other way around. When you decide that you are worthy of abundance, of opportunity, of freedom, you begin to act differently. And when you act differently, life responds in kind. We don't attract what we wish for, we attract what we embody. And the mind, when properly trained, becomes a powerful filter. It begins to notice ideas, people, and opportunities that align with the belief structure you've installed. That's not magic. That's biology, that's psychology, that's self-leadership. You don't need to become someone else to attract wealth. You need to become more of who you truly are. Underneath the fear, underneath the conditioning, underneath the old story. The wealth identity isn't something you borrow. It's something you uncover. You were born with it. Now it's time to live like it. Before anything grows in the physical world, it first has to grow in the mind. And just like a garden, the quality of that growth depends on the quality of the environment it grows in. You can have the best seeds in the world, the best ideas, strategies, intentions, but if the soil is dry, full of weeds, or neglected, nothing will take root. The same is true for wealth. Wealth doesn't start with a bank account. It starts with a mindset. A trained mind is fertile ground. But most people don't train their mind. They feed it whatever shows up. Fear, doubt, distractions, comparison, scarcity. And then they wonder why their life doesn't reflect abundance. The truth is simple but inconvenient. Your outer world can never outgrow your inner world. So the question is, what kind of mental environment are you creating? The human mind is constantly absorbing. Every thought you allow in is either a seed or a weed. You may not control every thought that shows up, but you absolutely control which ones you water. And the ones you water determine your results. A wealthy mind is not one that simply knows more, it's one that protects its focus. It's selective with its energy. It learns to say no, not just to people and distractions, but to ideas that no longer serve the vision. Most people were raised in mental environments of scarcity. Maybe you heard things like money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are greedy, or you have to struggle to succeed. These ideas aren't facts, they're programs. And unless you challenge them, you'll build your life around them without even realizing it. You could be the most intelligent person in the room, but if your mind is still playing an outdated script, you'll never act on your potential. You'll hesitate when you should move. You'll shrink when you should expand. You'll settle when you should rise. And all of that will feel logical because it's in line with the environment you've allowed to form in your mind. So how do you shift it? It begins with awareness. You have to pay attention to the language you use, not just out loud, but in your head. Language is a mirror of belief. Do you speak in terms of limitation or possibility? Do you say, I can't afford it, or how can I afford it? Do you say, I've never done this before as a reason to stop, or as a reason to learn? The words you use aren't just labels, they're blueprints. They shape what you build. Every time you catch yourself using words that shrink you, you're being handed a choice. Continue reinforcing the old mental environment, or plant something new. Creating a mental environment where wealth can grow means curating what you consume. Your inputs shape your identity. The books you read, the conversations you have, the people you surround yourself with, they all feed the soil of your mind. And if your environment is full of negativity, drama, and small thinking, don't be surprised when your ideas struggle to grow. This doesn't mean you cut people out of your life carelessly, but it does mean you take responsibility for what you allow to take up space in your mind. A healthy mental environment requires boundaries. You have to become a gatekeeper for your own energy. And let's be clear, this isn't about toxic positivity. It's not about pretending everything is okay or avoiding discomfort. A powerful mental environment isn't one that avoids challenge. It's one that sees challenge as a catalyst. It embraces adversity as a classroom. It uses difficulty as data. That kind of mindset doesn't happen by accident. It's trained. It's reinforced. It's practiced. Discipline is part of the environment. Gratitude is part of the environment. Optimism, the decision to believe in what's possible, is part of the environment. These aren't traits you're born with. They're tools you develop, and the more you practice them, the more natural they become. One of the most overlooked tools for shaping the mind is stillness. We live in a world that glorifies noise. Constant input, constant hustle, constant distraction. But wealth is often attracted in silence. It's in the quiet moments that clarity is born. It's in reflection that vision sharpens. If your mind is always reacting, it has no space to create. Make time to think, not to worry, not to scroll, to think, ask better questions. What do I really want? What's no longer serving me? What kind of person would I have to become to handle the next level of success? When you create space for reflection, you create room for wisdom. And wealth is built on wisdom, not just action. Another part of this mental environment is emotional resilience. You will fail, you will make mistakes, you will be judged. But if your self-worth is tied to perfection, you'll quit the moment things get hard. A wealthy mind is a resilient mind. It learns from feedback without personalizing it. It sees every setback as a stepping stone. It knows that rejection is not a stop sign, it's a redirect. The most powerful people in the world aren't the ones with the fewest problems. They're the ones who respond differently to problems. That's mindset, that's environment. And it's built one response at a time. You don't build a powerful mental environment overnight. You build it daily with intention, with self-awareness, and with patience. You become the kind of person who doesn't just make money, but who can sustain and multiply it. Because now your mind is fertile, your habits are aligned, your energy is clean, and the seeds of wealth finally have a place to grow. It's not about what you do once. It's about who you are consistently. The most valuable investment you will ever make isn't in stocks, real estate, or business. It's in the space between your ears. Guard it, shape it, train it, because when your mind becomes rich, everything else tends to follow. Most people look at success and see a result. A car, a business, a lifestyle. But that's just the surface. The real story, the truth no one posts online, is what happens before all of that. What happens in the dark? What happens when no one's watching? The real story of wealth is written in your habits. We don't become wealthy by accident. We become wealthy by alignment, by doing small things consistently over time that stack up and compound. Not glamorous, not exciting, but intentional, predictable, purpose-driven. If you want to know where someone is headed, don't look at what they say they want. Look at what they do every day. Most people are hoping for breakthrough moments, a big deal, a major client, a lucky break. But those moments are never random. They're earned. And they're earned in the daily routine, in the hours that most people waste, and the choices most people avoid. Wealth is a side effect of discipline. The problem is that we've been sold the idea that change happens with intensity. A grand gesture, a dramatic shift, a life-altering moment. But sustainable success doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. From the daily decision to act in alignment with who you want to become, not just how you feel today. There's a reason most people stay stuck. They wait to feel motivated before they act. They wait to feel ready before they commit. But feelings are unreliable drivers of behavior. They're reactive. They change with your circumstances. But habits are reliable. They don't need to be exciting. They just need to be practiced. And eventually those votes turn into evidence. And that evidence rewires your belief system. You stop trying to convince yourself that you're disciplined. You become someone who's disciplined. That's how habits work. They shift identity. And identity drives behavior. One of the most important wealth habits is clarity. It's a daily habit to reconnect with your vision, to ask yourself, what matters most today? Without clarity, you drift. You react. You respond to everyone else's urgency instead of your own priorities. But with clarity, you lead your day. You create before you consume. You decide what deserves your attention and what doesn't. Another key habit is reflection. Wealth builders don't just move fast. They stop to evaluate. What worked this week? What didn't? Where did I show up fully? Where did I hide? Reflection isn't about shame, it's about data. Without it, you repeat mistakes. With it, you grow wiser faster. And eventually, those votes turn into evidence. And that evidence rewires your belief system. You stop trying to convince yourself that you're disciplined. You become someone who's disciplined. That's how habits work. They shift identity. And identity drives behavior. One of the most important wealth habits is clarity. It's a daily habit to reconnect with your vision, to ask yourself, what matters most today? Without clarity, you drift. You react. You respond to everyone else's urgency instead of your own priorities. But with clarity, you lead your day. You create before you consume. You decide what deserves your attention and what doesn't. Another key habit is reflection. Wealth builders don't just move fast, they stop to evaluate. What worked this week? What didn't? Where did I show up fully? Where did I hide? Reflection isn't about shame, it's about data. Without it, you repeat mistakes. With it, you grow wiser faster. Then there's the habit of investing, not just financially, although that matters, but investing your time and energy into things that have a long-term return. Learning is a wealth habit. Reading is a wealth habit. Asking better questions is a wealth habit. The goal is not to look smart. It's to stay curious, to stay open, to keep learning, especially when you think you already know. One of the most overlooked wealth habits is energy management. Your mind is powerful, but only if you fuel it. Your body is a vessel for your vision. And yet, many people neglect it. They run on caffeine, stress, and 4 hours of sleep, thinking they're being productive, but productivity without sustainability is just burnout in disguise. Protecting your energy is not selfish, it's strategic. Rest is not a reward, it's a requirement. And then, there's the most challenging habit of all, saying no. Not to things that are obviously bad, but to things that are good, but not great, or opportunities that look shiny, but pull you off purpose. Invitations that flatter your ego but dilute your focus. Wealthy people have learned that every yes has a cost, and they're willing to pay attention to the price. Daily habits are the architecture of your future. They create rhythm, they build momentum, they remove friction from your decisions. You don't have to think about whether you'll show up. It's just who you are. And when it becomes who you are, it becomes sustainable. The truth is, anyone can do the right thing once. Anyone can be motivated for a day, but very few have the humility and discipline to do the small, boring things with excellence over time. That's what separates the dreamers from the builders. That's what turns potential into results. If you're not where you want to be financially, the answer probably isn't more complexity, it's more consistency. Look at your day. Look at your habits. Are they moving you closer to the future you want, or are they keeping you comfortable in the present you've outgrown? There is no secret formula. There is no shortcut, but there is a path. And it's built one habit at a time. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to show up every day with intention, with purpose, with the willingness to do the right thing even when it's not the easy thing. Because in the end, success doesn't come from what you do occasionally, it comes from what you do consistently. And if you can master your daily routine, you can master your destiny. Most people don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because they hesitate. They wait for the perfect moment. They overthink. They let fear disguise itself as logic, and they call it being realistic. But wealth doesn't wait for perfection. Wealth responds to aligned action, the kind that's driven by clarity and executed with courage. The idea that we need to have everything figured out before we move is a lie we've told ourselves to stay comfortable. And yet, the most successful people in the world are rarely the most prepared. They're the most aligned. They move before they're ready. They take the first step even if the rest of the path is foggy. Because they understand something that changes everything. Clarity doesn't always come before action. Sometimes clarity is created through action. You cannot think your way into a new life. You act your way into it. You move forward imperfectly, uncertainly, sometimes even awkwardly. And with every step, the next one becomes clearer. That's how progress works. You start where you are, use what you have, and trust that the process will evolve as you evolve. But this only works when your actions are aligned with your values. That's what makes it powerful. That's what gives it momentum. Action without alignment burns you out. It looks busy, but doesn't move you forward. But when you act in a way that reflects who you are and who you're becoming, everything changes. Your energy increases, your confidence grows, your results compound. So the question isn't just, what do I need to do? It's, what would it look like to take action from a place of alignment? Because there's a big difference between movement and progress. A lot of people are moving fast, but in circles. They're busy, but they're not building. They're doing more, but becoming less. Aligned action is different. It's intentional. It's rooted in vision. It's not about impressing others. It's about honoring your future. It's about making choices today that are consistent with the life you say you want to live tomorrow. And here's the thing. Aligned action almost never feels convenient. It requires courage. Not the kind of courage that shows up in big, heroic moments, but the everyday kind. The courage to be honest about what's not working. The courage to ask for help. The courage to say no. The courage to risk looking foolish. The courage to keep going when nothing is guaranteed. Most people underestimate how much courage wealth requires. It takes courage to start something when you don't yet have the proof it will work. It takes courage to invest in yourself when the returns aren't immediate. It takes courage to raise your standards, to change your circle, to walk away from things that are good but not great. But the reward for courage is clarity. And the reward for clarity is momentum, right? Because when you start acting in alignment with who you truly are, life starts responding differently. You start attracting different people, different opportunities, different results, not because anything outside you changed, but because you changed. There's no substitute for doing the work. There's no shortcut. But when you're aligned, the work feels different. You're not forcing it, you're flowing with it. You still face resistance, but you're no longer fighting yourself. And that internal harmony, that's where real power comes from. It's not about hustle for the sake of hustle. It's not about being constantly busy. It's about being brave enough to show up with focus, to move with purpose, to take the next right step. Not the perfect step, not the guaranteed step, but the right step. The one that aligns with your values, the one that honors your intuition, the one that calls you forward. Because the truth is, your future is not waiting for you to be fearless. It's waiting for you to be faithful. You trust that if you're moving in the right direction, the direction that's aligned with your deepest sense of purpose, then everything you need will meet you along the way. Not all at once, but as you grow. And yes, that means you'll make mistakes. You'll take wrong turns. You'll try things that don't work. But mistakes are part of movement, part of mastery. They don't mean you're off track. They mean you're on it. The people who succeed aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who get better at responding to it. They learn, they adjust, they keep going. Wealth isn't just about money, it's about momentum. It's about building something that lasts, not just financially, but personally, relationally, even spiritually. That kind of wealth can't be faked. It's built moment by moment, decision by decision, action by action. And the most powerful actions are the ones that feel small, but come from deep alignment. Sending the email, making the call, showing up early, saying thank you, owning your mistakes, asking for clarity, taking the meeting, reading the chapters, saving the money, stretching just a little beyond what's comfortable. That's how transformation happens. Not in the giant leaps, but in the steady, deliberate steps. One choice at a time, one habit at a time, one act of courage at a time. So if you're waiting for a sign, for permission, for certainty, this is it. No one's going to show up and give you a certificate that says, now you're ready. You don't need that. You just need to start. Start small if you have to. Start messy. Start uncertain. But start. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. Take the step that aligns with your values. Take the step that reflects your vision. Take the step that scares you and also excites you, because that's the one that matters most. In the end, wealth doesn't respond to theory, it responds to action. Aligned, courageous, consistent. So start acting like the person you want to become. The results will catch up.